Hi, everyone. This is Julie with a quick note before the show. This is the last Throwback Thursday episode and the last episode on the feed in 2022. And as I thought about what episode I wanted to bring back to you, I kept coming to this conversation with the truth bomb mom, Kristina Kuzmic. In it, one of the most powerful takeaways is how owning her flaws and sharing them vulnerably with her children has become a key to living her epic life. If your 2022 has been anything like my year, there have been a lot of things that didn't go exactly as planned. But I hope this conversation gives us all permission to look at the things that didn't go right and to see how there might be some powerful lessons or even some really special gifts in them. I also wanted to let you know that the Mother's Quest Live Your Epic Year planner has arrived. It comes in so many different formats and it's filled with all the signature reflection practices that I've been building over the last 6 years. And I hope if you're looking for a planner that you might find what's just right for you. I'm currently doing a giveaway on Instagram at Mother's Quest Pod. It's so easy to enter, and it would really help me to spread the word about these incredible planners. So I hope you'll hop over to at Mother's Quest Pod, sign up for the giveaway, take a look at the planners and see if there's one that's calling to you. And that the planners and this conversation not only give us the opportunity to identify some things that we're taking away from the flaws in our life, but also set some powerful intentions for 2023. Hope you love this conversation. Have a meaningful close to your year and a beautiful start to your new year.
Hi, and welcome to Mother's Quest, a podcast for moms like me ready to live our own truly epic life. I'm Julie Neal, a life and leadership coach, community builder, writer, and mom to 2 high-energy boys who challenge me to grow into my best self. I'll be right there. Where was I? Hi, Mother's Quest community. Thank you to those who've signed up to be a patron, like Mother's Quest Founding Circle member Cameron Miranda, who dedicates today's podcast episode to her mother. Here's Cameron.
I would like to dedicate this episode in the Mother's Quest podcast to life in the body. Dear Mom, life has been terribly unkind to your body parts, some qualifying for enemy combative status. We often joked in high school about jumping into the car to exchange a body part at Walmart. I always found Walmart to be a funny choice for a new inner ear or breast. You have known the lonely places of loss, where acceptance is a lifelong companion and maddening teacher. You have touched the hem of death and fought like hell to live. You have been the heartbeat of our family, even while the grips of vertigo pull the ground out from under you. Life in the body is your catchphrase, but representative of only one underperforming pie chart of your portfolio. You have lived an awesome and adventurous life with a zest for creativity, boldness, connection, and generosity. My beautiful mom, Jenny Jordan, I celebrate all of your functional and effective body parts. They make up one gutsy and remarkable woman.
Thank you, Cameron, for honoring your mother's creativity, heart, presence, and perseverance, which shine through despite her challenges. These qualities also shine in this vulnerable conversation with the truth bomb mom, Kristina Kuzmic. Energetic, funny, and honest, Kristina has an in-your-face perspective on issues of parenting and life in general. She's become a YouTube sensation with her mom-centric videos about raising children and juggling all of life's challenges, with over 200 million views across media outlets and websites worldwide. Kristina and her husband currently live in Southern California, where her most important, rewarding, and exhausting careers include being a sanitation engineer, chef, chauffeur, and conflict resolution guru for her 3 mostly satisfied clients, her children. In this episode, we talk about Kristina's experience growing up in America, shaped by an escape from war-torn Croatia. She shares how on a leap of faith, she went from being a divorced mother on food stamps to winning a cooking show on Oprah's own network in 2011. How her satirical YouTube video, 4 Reasons Women Should Never Breastfeed in Public, went viral, and why Kristina believes it is her community that's responsible for her reaching 500,000 followers. We get honest and emotional about our flaws and insecurities, but also our impact and the power of sharing these with our children. Finally, we reflect on our shared experience of losing a child in utero and how focusing on just one positive thing on that day shifted both of our perspectives and changed everything. I hope you leave this conversation as I did, inspired to keep turning the pages in the chapter of your epic life, staying true to your mission, owning your flaws, and paying attention to one positive thing every day. I was so grateful for this time with Kristina, and I know you will be too. I'm Julie Neal, and this is Mother's Quest. Kristina, thanks so much for coming onto the Mother's Quest podcast. I'm excited to talk with you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
You're known as the Truth Bomb Mom, and I've had the pleasure of watching a few of your videos recently. I really love the way that you bring in the things that are happening daily in your life with humor and compassion, and I always find myself uplifted. So I'm excited to hear more about your story and how you have come to this point where you're sharing your stories in this way.
Well, that's so sweet of you. Actually, that's probably the nicest compliment someone can give me, is that I've in some way uplifted them.
We'll include some links for people to listen and get a chance to see these videos in action. I want to move into the first question that I ask every guest on the Mother's Quest podcast. And it's an opportunity to hear about what has shaped you. So I'd love to hear about your childhood and the role that your mom played in shaping who you are today.
Sure. Okay, so I grew up in Croatia, actually. And it was before Croatia was an independent country. It was during communism. And then when I was 12, the war started there. In America, I feel like people heard more about the war in Bosnia, which is all basically kind of the same war that Croatia was involved in. Obviously, my childhood was not a typical childhood maybe a lot of American children have gone through, but I feel like that definitely shaped who I am because I had to learn how to deal with struggles from a young age. And my mother, who has a completely opposite personality of me, she would never, ever want to do a video. I mean, she doesn't even, have social media. She doesn't like her picture out there. But yet she is this very strong woman. And that's something she's definitely instilled in me. And even though she is a lot quieter than me and private, she's very bold in speaking her mind and standing up for what she believes. And so that obviously had an amazing impact on my life, to have that kind of female role model of just class and grace. But at the same time, when I see a wrongdoing in the world, I will stand up for it. When I see someone who's hurting, I will be compassionate toward them, vocally, actively. So that was big. And then also, as far as parenting, which is what my videos mostly focus on, she was a very loving parent, but also strict. There were guidelines, there were rules, she followed through, and I really appreciate that now. I didn't always appreciate it as a kid. I don't know that any kid appreciates that, but I appreciate that now. And I hear her voice in my head a lot when I'm parenting my children. I just think finding that balance between giving your kids, guidelines and being strict but fair, but at the same time, making sure they know they're always loved and still creating so many joys and room for fun and laughter in life. Finding that balance of those two, I think, make for a really healthy environment in a family.
I agree. It's really powerful. And it's so interesting. Some of the videos I've seen of you recently, I was watching the one with you and your son talking about bullying and him, just sharing his own experience of seeing you step in and be a champion for other people. It's clear that you have really incorporated that in your life. And then also there's the one that you talked about not being your child's best friend.
Yeah.
Just realizing that part of your job as a mom is holding lines and boundary for them.
Yeah, I mean, you asked about my mom, and that's something that she really didn't let her children affect her self-esteem. I don't know if that makes sense, but I feel like obviously we want our kids to like us. Why wouldn't we? They're the most important people to us in our life. So we want to be liked by them. But if that becomes the priority, we suddenly lose that sense of I'm the parent and I still need to guide you and I need to set some boundaries so that you can have a successful life and know how to thrive. And so the whole idea of not being your kid's best friend is about put your kids' needs and their future before your own need to be constantly liked by them.
Yeah. I'm curious about your experience coming to the United States from Croatia, and how did your mom guide you through that process?
It was so strange because We hear so much now more than ever about immigration and refugees and all that. Moving to America is like this dream come true when you live in a poor country, especially in a country that's going through war. And you sort of see America as what you would see in the media. You know, everybody's rich, everybody's life is easy, because that's sort of how they portray America in the rest of the world. So moving here, which should have been like the most exciting thing for me, carried a lot of guilt because I was leaving friends behind who were still in basements, you know, trying to avoid war, you know, trying to avoid death. And here I am, you know, going to the mall with my friends in high school. And so that was the main thing my mom had to sort of guide us through, is through that guilt, I think, more than anything. And obviously there's culture shock and language. I mean, everything's different. It took me a while to make any friends here because I was this weird foreign kid. But my mom just, again, she was just sort of steadfast and just, you know, instilled this, you know who you are, be who you are, you know, don't let other influences change you. And yes, you know, we can help in any way we can your friends back there, but you need to also learn to be grateful for this new life and appreciate it. Honestly, she had so much to juggle. That's a lot of different emotions for a kid to go through.
Yeah. So what do you think were the things that you took from that experience that have been part of your quest as a mom and a person who shares herself and makes a difference?
So I went through that as a child, and then later when I became an adult, I got married and had 2 kids and ended up going through this really rough divorce. And there were a lot of other family dynamics that played into that. And I was broke and depressed and all that stuff. So a lot of those, you know, they're very different situations, but it's the same feeling of struggle, right? And feeling overwhelmed and feeling like you're drowning. And what I found is that in those times, it felt permanent. It always felt permanent. When you're in it, it feels permanent. There is no light at the end of the tunnel. And so now that I am at that light, I have reached that light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not perfect. It's all flawed, but that's still wonderful. I think that's the main message I want to tell anyone who's struggling, is it's not permanent. It's just not. I mean, I wish that in those moments, whether it was as a kid going through war and then, you know, adjusting to the big move and a new culture, or whether it was when I was going through my divorce, I wish someone had just wrapped their arms around me and told me, I promise you, I swear to you, this is just a chapter in your life. This is not the whole book, and you can't get frozen in this. You got to keep turning the pages. Just keep taking a step at a time, turning the pages. There are other chapters, because I really believe that for every human being, there are other chapters.
I love the way that you're using this idea of story and chapters and turning the pages, because one of the things I've been struck by through these interviews is how each person has a different metaphor that's really powerful for them. So for me, last spring, the metaphor that I was using was the hero's journey, stepping into becoming the hero of my own life, and feeling like it was time for me to stop having these whispers of something I really wanted to do and change I wanted to make, and a way to be more present in my life and with my kids, and allow that to stay as just this nagging voice inside, and start to take steps and move into action. And the creation of Mother's Quest and this podcast is all part of that. So I love to, in these interviews, learn about the metaphors that you hold, and then ask you about how you're living what I call our epic life. So connoting being the author of your story and the hero of your journey. And then EPIC also is a mnemonic acronym for the guideposts that I think when we are raising our children will help us lead an epic life. So E stands for engaged mindfully with our children. P is passionate and purposeful, making a difference beyond our family. I is invested in ourselves, and C is connected to a strong support network so that we're in community on the journey and we have people to help light the way for us. So I'd love to jump now into these guideposts and how they are showing up in your life.
I love that, by the way. I love that. So for me, I think there was always, again, for me, I feel like a lot of moms share the same thing with me. There's this fantasy we have of who we want to be as a mother, as a woman. We've set this fantasy, whether it came from media, whether it came from our own daydreams as a child, whether it came from us looking at somebody else and seeing 1% of their life, but just imagining that it's this amazing, perfect thing. And so now we want that. Whatever it comes from, I feel like we all have this fantasy, and we can never reach it. And that keeps striving for that fantasy It's like the cruelest thing you can do to yourself. I honestly think of it as like abusing yourself, because you are always feeling let down. You always end up feeling like a loser. You always end up feeling sad. You're just not good enough because you can't reach this fantasy you've developed in your head. And so I basically decided that I don't want the fantasy. I am going to accept the reality. I started my own company and I had to come up with a name. My husband's a CPA. So he's like, okay, we got to come up with a name for this company. And I immediately said Flawed. I want to call it Flawed. I think it is one of my favorite words right now, because that's how I choose to live my life. I am done with the fantasy. I'm done with perfect, which is just an illusion. I like flawed. We are all flawed. My life is flawed. And if I can accept that, then it's much easier for me to be happy with me, to let myself make mistakes and not beat myself up over them. It is much easier for me to be a parent and love my children and know that I will not always know the right thing to do. And I will make mistakes and I will be selfish at times. And I might not give the best advice. And I can have some regrets, and that's okay too. Just giving myself that permission to be human, to be flawed, takes away so much burden. And then also it allows me to connect better with friends and family and go, you know what? I need the village. I need the village because I cannot do this on my own.
And that element of being real and human and exposing and honoring the flaws comes out in all the stories that you share. And I'm certain that that's part of why so many moms like me are wanting to check in and listen to you. I'd love to hear how you bring that into the E for epic in terms of engaging with your kids.
The big thing is that I don't want my kids to grow up with this, expectation, right? So a lot of the ways we do connect, and I think, obviously to connect with your children, it's like there's the fun stuff and I take each of my kids out on their own and all this stuff. But where I feel like the real connections happen is when we can open up and be really vulnerable and honest with each other. My oldest is a teenage boy, and the way he opens up to me, sometimes honestly surprises me. But I realize it's because in our family, we've created this environment of you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have all A's. I don't expect you to never make a mistake. I expect you to learn from every mistake. And yes, there are consequences for certain things, but I want to hear it all. I want to know it all. My goal is not to, make you feel horrible. My goal is to help you learn the lessons and to build you up. Again, it's like that whole same theme of we're all flawed. One example, my daughter actually told me after, she's like, I never felt closer to you in my life. She came back home with a really, really bad grade. And she expected a, big reaction or something. And she had never failed anything. And she failed this really big test. But she took responsibility for it and everything. And then I ended up basically telling her that her consequence for the bad grade, and she's sitting there, worried what it was. I told her the consequence for the bad grade is that she needed to let it go. She just needed to let it go because I don't want her beating herself up over it. It's one bad grade. I want you to learn from, move on. And just the relief on her face when that was the consequence is just let it go. I'm not allowing you to dwell on this. Those are the kind of moments that I have with my children that I feel like this is a lasting moment. This is something that's actually going to shape her character and her personality.
I love that you talked about being vulnerable and honest with your kids as part of how you connect. I found that is so important. And I often ask my kids questions. I have a 4-year-old and an almost 13-year-old. So you and I have that in common about traveling two different worlds of parenting. But I've asked both my kids questions when I'm at a crossroads or feeling uncertain. So in my intro episode, I talk about what Jake, my little guy, offered to me, which was just incredible. But last night I had an experience, and so you just reminded me of it, and I thought I would share with you. My older son was just getting ready to go to bed, and I still try to get in there before he does and say goodnight. And before he did, I said, Ryan, I'm interviewing, do you remember I showed you those videos? I'm interviewing Kristina tomorrow, and I'm really excited, but I'm a little nervous. She knows Oprah, and she has 500,000 followers. And without skipping a beat, he said, Mom, is she more than you?
Oh my gosh, I'm going to cry. That is so great.
He said, she may have more accomplishments than you, but she's not more than you. Just remember
Oh my gosh,
that.
I love your son.
Me too.
That is so brilliant.
Our kids have so much wisdom and have the power to reflect back and really mirror what we show them.
Yeah,
So,
and I love that you did that you went in, because I feel like sometimes as parents, we forget to listen. We teach our children, you need to listen to me, you need to listen to what I'm saying, listen to what I'm saying. And it's like that becomes a thing. It's like, you listen, I talk. I set the rules and you obey. And then something happens when we sit there and just listen to our children, and we can learn so much.
what do you think is one of the biggest things you've learned from them?
Oh my goodness. I feel like I learned different things from each one, just again, not to keep repeating the same thing, but just the fact that we are so lovable and wonderful, even when we're not at our best, and not just that I see that in my children, but that they can see that in me, that even on my worst day, they can see some greatness in me. It's like, well, wow, why can't I see that in me on my worst day? I've obviously learned a lot of patience, which is wonderful because I was not a very patient person. But I've also learned to apologize more, I guess, quicker than maybe I used to. It's like, I want them to learn to own their mistakes. So now, even when, my ego tries to get in the way, I'm sort of inspired by their lives and what I want, the type of people I would like them to be. I'm more inspired to go, you know what? I lost my temper too soon, or I didn't handle a situation correctly. I'm going to go to my child and I'm going to humble myself and apologize. And I think that's actually really, really important for children to see.
So powerful. I want to move into the P in EPIC, passionate and purposeful, making a difference beyond your family, and hear a little bit about your journey to the work that you're doing now. I'd love to hear some of how you first started doing this work, and then what is your focus these days?
Well, I've had kind of a crazy journey. So you mentioned Oprah. I kind of out of the blue entered this reality competition that Mark Burnett, who's the producer of Survivor and Voice and all those great shows, he had this show with Oprah where they were looking for the next TV star. And I entered and thought nothing of it. There were like 20,000 people who sent in videos. I ended up getting on the show and ended up winning the show, which was crazy, unbelievable. Because you have to understand, 2 years before that happened, I was sleeping on the floor next to my kids' beds. We were sharing a room. I was on food stamps. So it's kind of this crazy like Cinderella story. And I won, and I got to have a cooking show on Oprah's network, and that was all wonderful. And I was very grateful for it. Obviously, I still am. But it didn't feel like I had found my thing yet. I don't know how we even describe it, just that thing that completely fulfills us and we have found our calling.
Yeah.
And so eventually, a few years later, I was running this little website that mostly had recipes, but I found myself always drawn to this one tiny little section on my website that I called parenting tantrums. And I found myself always wanting to write more for that and wanted to make more content for that. And I thought, well, why am I so stuck on cooking and recipes when obviously my passion is in this other direction? So I started making these silly little parenting videos while my older two were in school and my little one was napping. And I mean, I really did it more just for me and as a hobby, and my friends will enjoy them. So as it grew and grew and grew, and it's funny, everything I do has had the same theme as even when I was doing cooking. I mean, the reason Oprah gave me a cooking show is because she said, you're not scared to show that you mess up, and sometimes you burn dinner, and you're not trying to be this perfect, I have a 5-course meal for my kids every night. So I realized that, wow, moms are really, not just moms, parents in general are really craving just people who are willing to go, this is hard. And it's okay that it's hard, and it's okay to have a bad day, and that, not loving every second of parenting doesn't mean you don't love your children every second. I don't even know how it grew. Honestly, I cannot believe what it grew into.
What was the process for you? So you started focusing then on, what felt like more of your true calling. And then how did that grow? And can you share a little bit about what your community looks like today and what kinds of things you're cooking up?
Sure. I think it was the 4th video I ever did that went completely viral all over the place. And the moment I realized, whoa, something crazy is happening, is when Ashton Kutcher shared it on Facebook. And I thought, what? Why is Ashton Kutcher? He's not even a mom. What is he doing? That's when I went, what is happening right now? And then honestly, I have to give credit to parents out there who watched my videos, because they just decided to start sharing it and sharing it and sharing it. And then more people were watching and subscribing. Just the other day, I was celebrating because my Facebook page reached 500,000 followers. And I thought, 500,000 followers, I don't feel like they're mine. It feels like a community, and my name happens to be on the page. It really is just all the parents that made it happen. I give so much credit to all these moms and dads who kept sharing my stuff.
What was the video that went viral?
It was actually a sarcastic video of breastfeeding. So the video is called 4 Reasons a Woman Should Never Breastfeed in Public, but it's a sarcastic take because I'm all for women feeding their babies whenever and wherever they need to. And so it was sort of making fun of the anti-breastfeeding arguments. So when Ashton shared it, he wrote something like, sometimes the best way to combat ignorance is with humor.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, okay, that's crazy that you shared that. I think his wife had just had their first baby and she was probably breastfeeding, and that's probably why he did it. Yeah.
Yeah, I have seen that. We'll put a link to that video. It's classic.
I guess the biggest advice, not that anyone's asking for advice, here's your unsolicited advice that I'm totally against unsolicited advice, that I would give anyone who found their passion and they want to grow it, whatever it is, it doesn't have to be videos, whatever it is stay authentic to who you are and just keep going. I think the reason people fail or whatever is either they start listening to the negativity and the rejection, and trust me, I get negative, not even just negative, I get really hateful comments and messages daily. I mean, daily. I've gotten rejected from so many jobs and things I wanted in the last, 5-6 years. And if you start either giving into the, oh, they don't want me, I must not be as good, or the comments you get from people, you really shouldn't do this, or you should do it this way, or your voice is obnoxious, or your message is dumb, or whatever, it's going to start changing who you really are. Because now you're taking notes from complete strangers that don't really know your story. And now you're letting that shape you, and you cannot do that. And then the other thing is, I would have a video go viral and then nothing would happen for months and months. And I go, oh, well, I guess I had one hit and now I can quit. And you just have to keep going. You just literally refuse to stop. You got to just be really, really stubborn.
Well, I appreciate that advice because I do feel kind of like you did with this podcast and with this mission around Mother's Quest and helping other moms like me live our epic lives. I feel like this is where I want to be now. And I also feel like it's much bigger than me. So I'm going to keep moving forward and
don't stop.
Stay true to the mission and the values.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I don't know if you've done this. And I actually tell people to do this, not even just for their career, to write a mission statement. My husband and I actually wrote a mission statement for our marriage. And I highly recommend that.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And it's like this 6-page document. It's like a quick paragraph, and then you open it. We made it almost into like a book. And then it's each thing, a mission statement for our finances, a mission statement for everything from sex, to how we're going to raise children, or everything. I mean, literally every big aspect of life is in there. And what's nice is when you have that, whether it's for your marriage or for your hobby or for your career, then in those moments where you go, what is the point? What is my mission? Everything's starting to get foggy. You go back and you read through it, and it just gives you some clarity.
I'm so grateful to hear that because I developed actually a whole theory of change, and I talk about it again in the intro, and it's an attachment on the website. I'd love for you to take a look and let me know what you think, but I haven't gone back to it recently. So it's a great reminder to pull that out again as I've now been moving into more of the day-to-day of implementing my vision and make sure that I'm staying true and grounded with all the principles and the vision and everything that was behind it at the inception.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly even like the idea, I'll do this sometimes, it's like setting an alarm for the first of every month, and you get an alarm, it's like, okay, read your statement. It's just reminder, I got to take the 5-10 minutes to read through this. We need it. We need to keep that in our head because things get distracting and it gets busy, and it's just an easy way to focus.
Yeah, so good. Before we move on to the next guidepost, what are your hopes and dreams now, as you've seen this community grow and become bigger than yourself? What are your future plans?
Recently doing a lot of speaking engagements, and I love that. I love connecting with moms. So that's one of my goals, is to do that even more. And as my youngest one gets older, is in school more, that'll be a little easier because obviously it requires traveling. That is a big thing for me, is now connecting with these people face to face and being able to hopefully encourage some of these people who are struggling face to face. I also have been approached recently about writing a book. I don't feel like I'm ready. And so I'm dealing with my own insecurities of, okay, are you really not ready? Or do you feel overwhelmed by this? Or what? I'm sort of trying to figure out why I'm pushing it away, and whether that's just fear, which I'm not going to give into, or whether there's a reason I really need to wait. I mean, honestly, my goal is just to continue doing what I'm doing. I never expected it to, grow this big. And if it stays at the size it's at now, I will die happy someday. And if it grows, even better.
Amazing. So how do you invest in yourself? How do you continue to care for yourself and grow in the midst of this work that you're doing and such intentional parenting?
So the good thing for me personally is that what I do is so much of it comes from me actually reflecting on my life and taking care of myself and then just getting to share that with people. So that's been really nice to have a career. It's almost like it's weird to say, but I'm getting paid to invest in myself, because by investing in myself, I'm figuring out, little tidbits that I want to share. In some ways, I feel like my career's forced me to do that more, which is interesting because a lot of times a career will distract you from being able to do that.
Your career is just so aligned with who you are, becoming your best self and being the best parent. That's how I feel about my work right now too.
Yeah. But then also for me, a big part is I have my group of friends who tell me the truth, who, are the most encouraging, supportive people, but at the same time will be very blunt with me. And having that not only helps you, stay genuine, authentic and all that, but those are also the people that will go, okay, you've been working hard. We are literally kidnapping you and making you take a break, or friends will go, I'm going to take your 2-year-old to the park and I need you to take a nap. So I think building that village around yourself is so important. The thing is, we can't do it on our own. Even investing in ourselves, we can't do it on our own. I can't just go and take a hike and just leave my kids and dogs and everyone. We have to have people who are willing to invest in our life so that we can invest in our life more. I hope that makes sense.
It totally does. And so you're alluding already to the C in Epic about being in community on your journey. You call it a village. What have you found are the things that are important that you bring to those relationships, which help them stay so strong and such a cornerstone in your life?
I mean, again, I think the most important thing is to be really genuine and that honesty with each other and that commitment in, I will see you through your worst and I know you will see me through my worst. Just really a commitment to each other. I make it sound like a marriage, but really it's this commitment of we're not just here for fun and games. We're not just here for the shallow relationship, but like we are here to see each other through our worst. I don't know. There's just something so powerful when you have that. And also there's something about women supporting other women. There are so many stories we hear about drama and friendships and competition and comparing. And for me, I get really, really excited to support another mom. I actually have my kid's pediatrician and I became good friends, and she decided to start making parenting videos. I was like, well, who's filming them? Who's editing them? What are you doing? She's like, I don't know how I'm going to pull this off. So she started coming to my house every Monday and I would film her videos and I would edit them. And she's done amazing things for me. And it's this back and forth of just like, let's root for each other and support each other and invest in each other. I strongly believe we are not meant to go through this life alone. We just aren't. And having those kind of relationships around you where it's a give and take and you're just rooting each other on and you are never looking for the other person to fail is seriously the most powerful gift you can give yourself.
So powerful. I love that you were able to reach out and support your doctor in this way, because I'm sure she brought so much to you and your family.
Yeah.
Just that reciprocity.
We actually just filmed a video together. I think it's going to come out probably end of February or so. She's just wonderful.
I look forward to seeing it. You've talked a lot about some of the lessons you've learned, just really accepting our imperfections and moving through it and the persistence and consistency. What do you feel like are things that you're still struggling with?
Oh man, so many things. I'm way too hard on myself. It's funny. I always say I would never treat my friends the way I treat myself. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. I can be so mean to myself, And so that's something I really struggle with is beating myself up over little things and worrying. I worry way too much. My grandmother passed away recently, and my whole life she would say to me, that's one bad thing you inherited from me. You worry the way I worry. And so I think, okay, well, one way to honor her life now that she's gone is I am going to work on not worrying. I have that critical voice in my head still that I have to tell, zip it, And I still, just like everybody else, I still think a lot of times when I make a video, I think, what's the point? Is anyone going to care? I have that tape that keeps replaying occasionally in my head. And I think we all have some version of it. I realize, and I always tell my kids, you have a choice. The tape wins or, your happiness and joy and fulfillment wins. And so I just have to keep telling that voice to take a seat, go to your room, You don't get to control this. I know you're going to be part of my life forever, but I'm just going to lower the volume on you and you can sit there quietly. You can come along, but you're going to sit there quietly.
Have you read Elizabeth Gilbert's book, Big Magic?
You know what? It's one that I keep hearing I need to read. I've read her other books and I adore her.
Me too. So actually, part of why I'm at this moment is because I went to a workshop of hers for my birthday just a little over a year ago. And she had us writing letters to ourselves from different parts of who we are. And I had to write a letter to my fear and sort of told it, I told it that I was going to honor it, but not let it drive. And she talks about that. That's her metaphor that, fear can come along in the back seat. It's not going to go anywhere. It can be along for the ride, but she's not going to let it drive and she's not going to let it turn the channels on the radio.
I love that.
I wonder if you wrote a letter, to yourself or to that inner critic voice, what you could tell it and what kind of boundaries you could put around it.
Oh my gosh. You know what? That's actually a video I should probably make. You just gave me an idea.
Yay.
Me talking to my critical voice, because I honestly think we all have a version of it. It's so annoying. It's that annoying family member I really don't want, but have to put up with.
I resonate with that a lot. And I think for years, that's part of what stopped me from doing something like this podcast is my way of coping with my own negative voice, my inner critic, was just not to step out, not to be vocal, not to be in the limelight, just be behind the scenes. And I finally have realized that I'm just not going to allow that to hold me back anymore.
And, I keep reminding myself when I hear that voice, whether it's that voice in my head or whether it's, like I said earlier, the negative messages and emails or whatever that I get from people. It's like, okay, well, what is more powerful? It's like what you're doing. The people that you are influencing, the people that are hearing your podcast and learning something and feeling encouraged, that's where our focus should be, on those people.
First of all, I just want to say that I really appreciated that conversation we just had about our inner critics. Knowing that even where you are still shows up for you is just a reminder that this is just a truly human thing.
Yes.
And something that I want to continue to tame and not let control my voice. The question that's jumping out for me now that I really want to ask you is, what is a recent moment you've had where you feel like you're really living your epic life?
It's so crazy, but honestly, recently I feel like I'm living it almost daily. Not to sound like I'm on some kind of a high, but it kind of feels like that. It's going to sound maybe so simple to you, but it's reading emails from these moms who are struggling and somehow something I said or did encourage them. That I cannot explain to you the absolute high and joy and emotion that comes from that. Because again, I am still hard on myself. I still question whether I have anything to offer. I still, have moments where I'm like, oh, how long can I keep doing these videos? People are going to get sick of watching me. People are going to, oh, here she is with another video. I have all that negativity still. So when somebody reaches out to me in tears, I mean, I'm not going to name names, obviously, but in the last few months, I've gotten 3 different emails from moms that told me that they were suicidal. And something I wrote or said in a video or whatever made them feel like they can keep going. I'm going to cry right now just saying that.
Yeah.
But like I never, ever, ever expected that my silly sense of humor or whatever could take a mom who's struggling so bad that she thinks her kids would be better off without her. That my words, my story, my whatever could impact her in such a powerful way. You can't even put that into words, like how that feels. That is me living my epic life. No matter how hard I am on myself, no matter how much I wonder if my words matter, if they matter for these 3 moms, I have done my job and more than I ever expected with my life, and I am okay.
It's you being 100% authentic to your truth and your life and being generous to share it and seeing the impact that has.
And that's the thing, you might be able to relate to this. When you put yourself out there, whether it's through podcast or videos or whatever, when you put yourself out there, and especially, I wrote a video about struggling as a newly divorced mom, and that's actually the one that got so much feedback from moms that are struggling. You're putting yourself out there for people to really, bash you and judge you and all this stuff. And so it's a choice where you have to go, okay, sharing this personal story, will it do more good or more bad? And it's like, again, I'm going to focus on the people that might be helped by this story and not
Right.
focus on everyone's that's going to judge me or think I'm exploiting my life and, all this stuff by sharing these things.
Yeah. And back to the voices analogy, which voices are you going to turn the volume up on? The women that have said that you've almost saved their life, or somebody who has some really petty criticism that is usually like coming from a totally superficial place.
Yeah. Somebody asked me recently, I want to share this with you. One thing I got asked recently by somebody is, I've noticed negative comments on your things and people can be so mean. And how do you handle it? How do you handle the haters?
Yeah.
And my response was, I don't handle them because they're not mine to handle. They have nothing to do with me. Their words have nothing to do with me. That is all about them. This is their thing. And I think that's a huge thing. And, sometimes it can come from people in your life. It might not come from strangers who are like, what are you wasting your time making those videos for, or whatever. It's like, that is not mine to handle. There's nothing I need to do with that. I just need to keep doing my thing.
So one of the amazing gifts of having, these conversations is just seeing the themes. And for me, it's like, okay, well, what are the lessons I need to learn? And just the episode that went live today with Amber Lillystrom was just also so powerful. I asked her the same question. She decided to be in a pageant and became Mrs. New Hampshire and found herself a week or so later at the Mrs. America pageant.
Wow.
All on a whim. We were talking about, did you feel judgment about choosing to be in something like that, which was really nothing she had ever done in her life before.
Yeah.
And maybe didn't seem aligned with what her typical values would be. And she said the same thing about, people who have judgment, it's not about her. It's actually only says something about them. And what's important is what she thinks and how she was choosing to go into that experience. So it's clear to me when I start to hear the same messages over and over again, I know this is really something for me to take in. Thank you for sharing it again. So Kristina, we're moving into the part of this conversation where you give a challenge to me. And this one's a little bit unique because it's actually a challenge I sought for myself from a video that I saw you share. And it really touched me and resonated with me personally. So I wanted to tell you about that. And then you can share a little bit more about how you go about doing this so that I can say yes and fully accept this challenge. So you did a video recently, I think just coming out of the new year, around how you are committing to doing something you had done before, writing something positive from your day each day for the whole year. And then you shared a story of why this had been so powerful for you years ago, that there was a day that you had a miscarriage, then you had to have the surgery, and you came home and you were getting ready to go to bed, and you just felt like the whole day had been so heartbreaking. But because you had committed to this practice, you had to think of something positive. And you wrote down that there was something about how your husband was caring for you and how he tucked you in, how it really changed your whole frame.
Yeah.
For me, the reason why I reached out to you and why we're even doing this interview today is that really spoke to a personal experience I had that I wanted to share with you. And thank you. It's just another example again of how helpful it is when you share your truth. So I had a hard time getting pregnant with my second child. That's why there's such a big age difference between my children. Initially, we were pregnant with twins. At 13 weeks, the doctor said to us, get yourself ready, because in the first trimester, they really caution you not to get too excited or too freaked out by the fact that you're having twins. But at that 13-week mark, he said, we should be in the clear, that things looked good. And then we came in one day for an appointment and they couldn't detect a heartbeat on the second baby, and something had just happened.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And it was, obviously, I was just totally, really distraught and so sad. And I had the wherewithal to drive myself to my Chinese doctor and acupuncturist, Dr. Angela Wu, who's amazing. I spent an hour with them, for them caring for me and sharing their words of wisdom. And they really had me change my whole frame of mind about it. That they said that, of course, there's a time to grieve and that you feel sad, and you have another baby that's growing. And that baby needs your love and your positivity. And, just shifting my perspective, it changed everything that day. And honestly, I haven't felt the need to grieve after that day. Obviously, it was such a sad experience, but there was something about just taking the time to let myself feel my feelings, to share what was happening for me, allow myself to get support and care, and then shift my perspective. It really made all the difference.
First of all, I'm so sorry you had to go through that. That is so heartbreaking. I do think, and for me too, when I lost my twins, it really is all about perspective. I keep telling my kids, there are two secrets to happiness. People are going to tell you need this, you need that. No, you need gratitude and you need perspective. That's really all you need.
Amazing. So tell us exactly how, we should go about focusing on gratitude and perspective in this challenge.
So with this, exercise or whatever you want to call it, basically I made myself that year, and I'm doing it again this year, before I fell asleep each night, the last thing I would do. So this is like your teeth are brushed, you are already in bed, which is, I said in the video, I use the notes section of my phone because I know I'll always have it near my bed. If you want to use a journal, that's fine too. The last thing you do before you close your eyes to go to sleep is you write down something good that happened that day. And it has to be specific to that day. It can't be general, like, I have a roof above my head. No, it has to be something specific to that day. I find sometimes people will email me and go, well, I can't think of anything big today. It doesn't have to be big. The point is not that something big is going to happen in your day. The point is that we need to focus on the little things that are good, because it's so easy to go to bed and go, today was rough because this happened and this happened. And it's like, was it really a bad day? Or are we whining about the 10 bad minutes in the whole day? Like, was there anything good today? And I find that every single day, even the day that I miscarried my twins and had to have the surgery and all that stuff, and I was bleeding and in pain, and I came home and had to tell my older two kids who were so excited. We had already celebrated these babies and we were so excited. Had to tell them, and they're bawling, and why did this happen, mommy? And we'll never get to meet them. It was just a heart-wrenching day. But I had to write something good that day. And I was frustrated. I laid there in bed and went, I can't do it today. I'm not doing it today. But I promised myself I would do it. And so the only thing I'd come up with is there was something about the way my husband tucked me into bed when he brought me home from the hospital. And the thing about it, and I said this in my video, if I hadn't been doing that exercise, I would have gone to bed that day feeling I am miserable. And instead, the last thought I had before I went to sleep was, I am loved. I am cared for. I mean, that is the most powerful thing you can do for yourself. And it will take 2 minutes of your time or less each night. I am telling you, that is the thing that shifted me from a negative, pessimistic person to someone who thinks so much more positive and is so much happier.
So I'm really excited to do this. I was inspired by it when I saw the video, but now that we've had this conversation happen, I'm fully committed. I'm all in, and I look forward from this point on in the year to seeing what impact that has for me.
Yeah. And the fun thing also is at the end of the year, you can go and look back and go, wow, so many good things that maybe I wouldn't have even taken the time to focus on happened in 1 year.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. It's time to close our conversation. I'm so grateful for it. And I want to share just a few things that I'm taking away and that are jumping out for me, and then give you an opportunity to do the same. I think I'm totally struck by how much you own your own flaws and are willing to share that and your vulnerability with your children, and how powerful that is and how much that's helping them. You just shared it through so many of the stories of your own life and how you interact with your kids. I'm also really paying attention to the importance of community and to other women coming together and supporting and championing one another and being there for one another. And this idea that what you've created with your community is so much bigger than yourself. It's definitely a vision I want to hold for the community I'm building. And the last thing is this reminder about our own inner critic and our inner voice, and my awareness now to pay attention to which voices I'm going to turn the volume up on and which voices to turn down. Those are really great lessons for me to take from this conversation. Thank you so much for them.
Oh, I love those. Honestly, I will take away, I'm inspired by you. I'm inspired so much by women that find their passion, and just like you did with this podcast, and just go with it. You are reaching out to people that you believe your audience, will resonate with. And I hope you realize how impactful that is.
Thank you. I fully take that in, and I'm smiling over here because I do feel it. I feel so appreciative. And one of the greatest gifts of this whole thing has been the opportunity to have conversations like this with people like you who I never would have known before, and who are, with every conversation, enriching my life, enriching the life of my kids, and I know impacting the people who are listening. So thank you.
Oh, and please tell your son how incredible I think he is for what he said to you about is she more? I will never forget that. Honestly, that is definitely something I'm taking away from this interview.
I will make sure I play this episode of the podcast for him and he can hear it with his own ears. Thanks, Kristina. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much for coming along with me on this episode of the Mother's Quest podcast. I hope this conversation sparked something that will help you live your epic life. If you'd like to get show notes and learn more about how to join the Mother's Quest community, visit mothersquest.com. And while you're there, I would love it if you would follow the prompts to subscribe, leave a review on Apple Podcasts, and help us to spread the word. I want to end with some words to help light the way on your quest. Seize the day, love your people, honor your gifts. Until next time.